Hi guys!
Welcome to our channel,
Today is our first wedding anniversary.
and we thought to take the time to explain to you what we think are the most important ingredients of a fulfilling and loving relationship.
All the points which we will share with you today are based on our own experience. So, of course, every relationship is different, but we're just sharing what we find for ourselves. It's really important. And the first thing which came to our mind was self healing and self knowing. Each of us basically went through our own healing journey before we met with each other. Each of us had different relationships in our lives where we're just learning our own lessons, getting to know ourselves better, learning who we want to be in a relationship, and also what kind of qualities we are seeking in the other human.
Oftentimes, when we look for a relationship, we look for this perfect partner who will fill us up with love and all the good feelings. But this is never really the case because anybody you spend a long time with kind of mirrors you and starts to show you your own insecurities, inadequacies, and all of these things start to come up in the relationship. So it's really important that we work on ourselves to heal ourselves, working on our fears, our insecurities. And as we become more whole and complete within ourselves, it's easier to relate to another person who is also more whole and complete to create a nice, loving relationship.
Then we don't seek for something from the outside to make us whole, but we are just becoming whole ourselves, and then we can create a beautiful relationship with the other human. So ultimately, we found that each of us had to work through our own fears and struggles just in order to become more complete version of ourselves. All the past situations, all our past relationships, all of that was to us a lesson. It was helping us to get to know ourselves better, to work through our fears and struggles, to just clarify what do we want actually from a relationship, what kind of relationship we really want to build, what are the qualities of the other human who we would like to be with, and most importantly, what do we want to bring from ourselves into a relationship. Because if we are starting a relationship with only all kind of expectations towards the other person, but we are not living up to our truth, up to our big most important life values, let's say, if we don't live up to that ourselves, then we will never find the other person who is actually living by them as well.
And so it's definitely like you attract a relationship that kind of mirrors something in you, as I said before. So, to give you an example, in one of my past relationships, earlier I had a very avoidant character, so I didn't really want to commit to anybody. I didn't want to be in long-term relationships. This kind of, I would say, internally, something about that being in that intimate space with another freaked me out, and so I attracted somebody who was kind of the exact opposite, and she wanted to commit straight away and within 1 month, wanted to have kids with me, wanted to have a family with me. And I was like, man, this is going too fast, it's too intense. And of course, um, it led to all kinds of drama and all, there was from both our sides, we were triggering each other. She had some issues of abandonment that she was dealing with from her childhood, and I had this avoidant aspect, and both of these were clashing together, creating a lot of fireworks. But also it enabled me to understand by the end of the relationship my own avoidant pattern that I needed to work on, but also that what kind of a person do I want to be with long term? What are the qualities of this person? And I think that, at least in my eyes, you have to go through a really tough, intense relationship like that to understand with complete clarity what kind of person you want to live your life with.
Yeah, I think each and every relationship we are having in our life is teaching us so many lessons. When I was 15, I stepped into relationship for like 3 years almost with a much older guy than me, like 6 years older, and he was very abusive. He was very aggressive to me. So that relationship was actually also a beautiful lesson. Like you said, it was mirroring what was in my state of mind at this point. I was actually very disturbed. I came out of very disturbed teenagehood and just lived in a lot of fear and discomfort, which I also brought into myself. All this suffering which was inside me, I also kind of projected it, I guess, with this relationship with the partner who I chose as a very young girl. But yes, later on, of course, as I worked through my healing process, different relationships were coming to my life, and each of them was teaching me different beautiful lessons. So slowly I was learning who I would like to become, what kind of qualities I would like to give from myself. I learned a lot about the jealousy, which I struggled with as I was feeling insecure with my ex partner who was cheating on me. So, out of that, I also brought that insecurity of just being scared to trust another person. I was carrying it into my next relationships as well. Then they were different, also different things which I kept carrying from my past, and I kept healing them step by step, just insecurities of my own self, of just seeking that love from the other person instead of just first loving myself, accepting myself the way I am. And then just as we are flourishing ourselves, as we are just really in that acceptance and love for ourselves, then we can actually really build a loving relationship with the other person. And later on, last thing which actually comes to my mind, which I learned from my other relationship, was to live in the way which I really want to. So on one hand, I really wanted to create the life of my dreams, let's say. So I wanted to live freely, to step fully into teaching yoga, to just be sharing the practice of yoga, which is my biggest passion. However, I had a lot of fears at the same time. I was stuck into my secured kind of job, into my, the place where I lived, and everything was so settled in my life. And I was scared to step out of it. And at the same time, scared to step out of the relationship, which I was not really fully fulfilled with. But it was comfortable, it was like secure, and everything was flowing well. But deeply in my heart, I knew that that's not really all what I want. I wanted something else from life. But all these fears were in me, so I was not allowing myself to just fully jump into unknown water and just dive into my dreams. But once I did it, once I actually dropped all these fears, dropped all the fears of living my life fearlessly, that's when actually I met Rohil, and that's when I found the love of my life.
And I would say that since I met Evelina, we kind of realized that we have very similar values, a very similar for vision for our life going forward. We have a similar foundation way of thinking, and I think that earlier I didn't think this was such a necessary ingredient. I thought that okay, two people who can have very varied values and interests maybe can get along well together. It of course it still might be the case, but I think that it is really really amazing when two people can come together who have the same values. These are like foundational values, values of being compassionate towards others, values of living in a certain way, a certain lifestyle. For instance, both of us like to sleep early, wake up early. We both like to eat healthy. We don't like to drink or party or do any other substances. And so that immediately makes it really easy, because if you have two people in a relationship, one who's sleeping late and one who wants to sleep early, it's going to create friction, and in the long term, it's pretty much going to be like living two separate lives.
I think some differences are totally fine, because when we think of the relationships we have also in our family, for example, like your parents are also very different. My grandparents, for example, are super different. Like the grandma, she also always goes to travel, to explore everything, and grandpa only stays home in the garden with his bottle of beer. So they have completely different lifestyle, but somehow they went through their life all the time together in a beautiful way. But these values were always common also for them when I just think of it. So just the values of respecting each other, loving each other, supporting each other. I think this is so, so important.
Being honest, being
Yeah.
truthful, open communication, all of these are really, I think, foundational values that if one partner believes in them and the other doesn't, it's going to lead to issues in the relationship. So I think in any relationship, first finding out what are the values of the other person and seeing if they are truly a match for oneself, I think is really important. And I think that having a lifestyle, so values are really important, but then having a lifestyle that matches is optional. There are some relationships that work
Hmm.
without having a lifestyle that matches, but I think it's also very beautiful if the
Yeah.
lifestyle matches. Like we both love to travel, we love to see beautiful places, we love to live in the nature, we love to do a yoga practice in the morning. So it kind of aligns easily. We're not um, trying to convince each other to do our activity. It's kind of our
Yeah.
activities are quite similar.
We just wake up in the morning, then there is no question what we do. We just open our mat and we practice together our Ashtanga. Then we have our healthy breakfast. Then we do some work. So it's just so nice and easy everything once our lifestyle is just similar.
And of course, the third point in a loving relationship is love itself. It's very important that we have unconditional love for each other. So, of course, any we are also not perfect. We have certain expectations of each other and so on. But I think that some amount of unconditional love must exist in the relationship for it to really work, where we are looking at the other person as they are and not as who we want them to be.
Mm.
So we are not constantly trying to change the person, modify them. Oh, she's great, but maybe if she just changed that, she'd be perfect. So we're not this kind of way of it's kind of possessing the other person. So we want to avoid trying to have the other person in our possession, and instead let them be free. And this is something I truly experienced when I met Evelina. Was she just let me completely free. She said, I don't want anything from you. I don't want you to commit to me. I enjoy your presence. I enjoy being with you. And but I don't need you to be in a particular way. You be as you are, you do you. And
Mm.
it was not just in the words that she spoke to me, but it was in her action as well. And so right in the first few months I really felt a lot of space in the relationship, which I hadn't really felt before. Even though we were spending a lot of time together, I felt that I was not being my freedom or individuality was not being suppressed. I was totally free. She was in no way trying to change me. At that point we had certain differences in our diet, and it was not like she was trying to force her opinion upon me or I was trying to force my opinion upon her. We had certain beliefs that were a little bit different, and we still do even today. We believe in certain different things, and that's okay. We still accept each other. We're not trying to change each other. And I think that is really a necessary ingredient, this kind of unconditional love, meeting the person where they're at.
Mhm. Oh, my sweetheart, I love you. Kocham cię bardzo. Bardzo, bardzo. Another aspect of love is to always be able to see each other's like true nature, each other's truth, basically, even when we have to look through the moments of maybe fear or anger or impatience, which is just covering this true selves in the moments. And instead of reacting in these moments with our own anger or impatience or fear or anything, but we just can really connect to the core of the other human. So that's something what I'm always super grateful to Rohil for, because I'm really impatient person and I'm easily falling into anger, and that's something what I'm working on throughout. And he, with his patience and understanding, he always just sees me the way I am. Even in the moments when I'm falling into anger, he would still just see me somehow. And by seeing me, he helps me so much to work through my struggles, which I have as well, because we all have something what we keep working on. And I think in the relationship, it's so important to keep always being able to see through this covers over our true self, cover of anger or anything else which is there. And instead of just exploding or falling into fights, just being able to communicate, to love each other, to support each other, and to love each other, as you said before, just the way we are, without expecting each other to be anything else but just ourselves as we are at this moment.
Yeah, beautifully said. And that actually brings us to our fourth point, which we thought of, is that there needs to be understanding and support in a loving relationship. And like Evelina said, we all have our own patterns, our own emotional patterns. Like Evelina said, she normally experiences anger and impatience. For me also, I may experience that in a different way. I sometimes start to rush and feel like we're wasting time, whether it's at the grocery shop buying groceries, or whether it's at the restaurant or at home. Often this is also challenging because we are working together as well on our yoga retreats business. So while working together, we often she often triggers me because she wants to do everything in a perfect way, and I just want to quickly get it done so we can get on to the next
We
task.
have this Polish way, and then there's the Indian way. It's okay.
Let's move on, kind of. So it's yeah, and I think that this understanding and support for each other, where we both can see each other's triggers coming up, or each other's kind of patterns, and at the same time not not getting angry with the other person, or not blocking out the other person, like, oh my god, this girl is always getting angry all the time, or she might say to me, oh my god, this guy is always rushing me. So like, for us um, to observe that in the other, and to still support the other person while they're in that stage. So instead of me reacting to her anger and creating a bomb and then having a big fight, which still happens once in a while for us, we are also not perfect, but also for when most of the times, if when she gets angry, if I can see that, oh, she's this pattern is repeating in her, she's becoming angry, so let me remove my ego from this situation, and let me just try to support and diffuse this anger
Mm.
so that we can move on peacefully, and knowing that ultimately this is not her true self, that anger, and neither is, in my case, that rush, my true self,
Mm.
but they are patterns that are emerging within us. And so the other person, if is in a state of awareness, can kind of help us to work on that pattern, and to
Mm.
release that pattern. So I
Mm.
think this is really important, especially when you live together all the time in a relationship. After a few years, most of the time divorces or problems in relationships happen because these patterns are met with resistance, which leads to a lot of friction
Mm.
and like a volcanic
Yeah.
eruption. Yeah.
Mhm. But yeah, I think what helps us a lot on this particular aspect is Vipassana practice, which is a type of meditation which we both practice for a while. We keep trying to practice in daily life, which is actually the most important part of practice to actually apply to the daily life. So exactly when these moments arise, when our triggers arise, anger, impatience, or anything else is there, instead of reacting into it straight away, we want to work on observing it, on observing the sensations which arise on the body, on noticing that, okay, this is now arising for me. Do I have to straight away explode and react? Or can I just take a moment, breathe through it, and then react in a much more mindful way? So that's something what the Vipassana practice helps us a lot in our life. And also when we were going for the 10-day Vipassana meditation courses, we were practicing it together. So we would go together for 10 days where men and women are also separate, and we would go each of us through our own experience. And after that, we were actually having an amazing conversations when we came out with so many new realizations about ourselves, just understanding so much more what is happening in our minds. And then with this open communication, we would, like share with each other even like the most like deep things, which maybe we could feel ashamed to share or scared to open up so much in such a vulnerable way in front of the other person. But I think this very open communication help us so much to really know each other's triggers and patterns. And then as we know them, we help each other to just work through them in the moments when they arise. Rohil is there to support me with them. I am there to support him with his things. And yeah, like we just keep working on making it also a bit more easy for each other to work through.
And I think this beautifully brings us to our fifth and last point of a healthy and loving relationship, which is forgiving one another and letting things go. And I think this is
And apologizing
and
also.
apologizing. Yeah, that
Mm.
was the point. So I think that it's really important, because sometimes what may happen is we may get into this pattern of holding grudges against one another. So
Mm.
somebody really pisses you off, or they act in a way that is was not nice. For example, they did something to you, said something to you, um, and it was not warranted for. So it was definitely they were going through a bad day or something like this, and they really were nasty to you. And then oftentimes what happens is we can kind of hold that hurt within us, we can hold that negative
Mm.
emotion and keep holding it for a while, for a day, 2 days, a week, a month, and it keeps
Mm.
festering and eating at us from within, and it kind of affects the relationship because there is this passive aggressive tone underneath the relationship, and at some point it's going to get bottled up and come to the surface and express itself in unhealthy ways. So I
Mm.
think it's very important to, after there's a moment where we've had a fight or there's some argument, that once we've processed it on our own, we take the time to forgive the other person, to apologize, to let
Mm.
it go. It's not what's more important, and that's what brings us back to our main intention. What's the most important for us is really creating this loving space, this loving relationship where we can help each other grow. And of course there will be moments of fire and moments of tension, but as long as we can keep letting it go and not hold on to those grudges and keep remembering it like an elephant
Mm.
for 100 years into the future, I think we can create a beautiful relationship, even
Mm.
though it might have a few speed bumps, like all things in life do.
But I think it brings us also into just this self work, because we ultimately keep working on ourselves through all of that. It's not that I am working on you, you are working on me. Of course, we are working on like our relationship, but by working on ourselves, by just becoming ourselves, better versions of ourselves, working through, yeah, all our repetitive patterns, working on being able to react more out of the space of love instead of space of fear or anger or different kind of expectations, just always connecting back into love and dropping our ego. I think the ego is also a big thing in this point, especially of apologizing and forgiving, because oftentimes we may have some arguments, something what, yeah, we just carry on in ourselves for so long, and we just feel like, oh, I cannot let go of it. This is not how this person's supposed to treated me or spoke to me or anything. But once we just drop our ego, once we are like, okay, it's fine, it happened, and like we just let it go somehow, then it becomes so much easier for us also, and the heart is just becoming so much lighter. So I think, yeah, just forgiving each other and being
Mhm.
able to say I'm sorry straight from the heart, that's a really important point.
And I truly think that a relationship is not just a 1 plus 1 equals to 2, but that 1 plus 1 is much more than 2, because when two individuals join together, and we really come together in a relationship, in a long-term relationship where we work with each other, it really leads to something magical. So I think that oftentimes we approach relationships from what am I going to gain from the relationship and what am I going to sacrifice in
Mm.
return for getting into this long-term relationship. And especially this was my thought pattern a few years ago, and I think it's true for many young men. And I think that truly stepping into a relationship for the long term, and now we are married, so it's for the forever in our heads. And
Mm.
so from that perspective, you are really committing down into one person, really using that as a mirror for yourself, and it kind of builds something that is greater than just the mixture of us both.
Mm.
And this is what we've experienced in our few years together, and also our year since we've been married.
Oh, kochany. To me, to be in such a relationship which is full of love, full of support, is just truly such an important aspect of life now, because it just makes everything so much better when you have somebody who you can go through all the difficulties, when you have somebody who you can grow with and just heal through all kind of struggles, and yeah, just walk through all the ups and downs of life, like shoulder to shoulder, with all the love for each other. And that's just the most beautiful thing, to have the safe space, loving space, which we keep creating for each other every single day. Then of having all the dreams, all the vision, where we are walking towards together. That's just such a beautiful gift. And I just feel every single day really grateful, so grateful that we could connect with each other and spend this life with each other. So I really wish more people could, yeah, just create the relationships which are full of love, full of fulfillment, full of support, because that's something what makes life so much more beautiful.
With that, we'd like to say thank you for watching our video,
Thank you
and
so much for
we are
watching.
we are constantly creating content on yoga, Ayurveda, conscious living. So please give us a subscribe, give this video a like if you liked it, and we would love to see you again in the future.
Thank you so much. Lots of love.